The Discovery Captain Vera Koss pushed her cargo hauler through the magnetic storms at the edge of the void sector, a region every navigation chart marked with blood-red warnings. Her crew thought she was insane, but the payment for delivering medical supplies to the quarantined colony on the other side was worth the risk. The merchant's dream wasn't built for this kind of punishment, and the hull groaned against forces that would have torn lesser ships apart. The sensors went crazy. First, every display on the bridge flickered between impossible readings and complete darkness. Her navigator, a young Corvani named Vex, frantically adjusted controls with his 4 arms, while his compound eyes reflected the chaotic light, show erupting across their instruments. Then everything stopped. The storms vanished like they had never existed, leaving the merchant's dream floating in perfect stillness. Outside the viewports stretched an ocean of stars, clearer than Vera had ever seen them. And directly ahead floated something that shouldn't exist. The structure was massive, beyond comprehension, a perfect sphere of unknown metal that must have been the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if the angles existed in more dimensions than the mind could process. No lights, no energy signatures, just an impossible object hanging in space where every survey, for the past 1,000 years, had shown nothing but magnetic interference. Vera's communication officer, an elderly Thrakari whose scales had dulled with age, spoke in a whisper that carried across the silent bridge. "Captain, I'm receiving a signal. It's using protocols I've never seen before, but the translation matrix is somehow understanding it perfectly." The message appeared on every screen simultaneously, written in the common trade language, but formatted in a way that felt ancient and modern at the same time. Human Preservation Protocol 7734 Alpha. Scanning vessel. Please maintain position. For verification. The word human sent ice through Vera's veins. Every schoolchild in the galaxy knew the stories. Humans had vanished 4,000 years ago, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. They had been the youngest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. Yet within just 3 centuries of joining the galactic community, they had disappeared completely. Some said they destroyed themselves in war. Others believed they had ascended to a higher plane of existence. Nobody knew the truth. Before Vera could respond, beams of light emerged from the sphere, scanning her ship with technology that penetrated every deck, every compartment, cataloging everything down to the molecular level. The process took exactly 17 seconds, then the beams vanished. A new message appeared. Non-human biological entities detected. Threat assessment. Minimal. Initiating contact protocol. Warning. This installation is protected by safeguard systems. Any hostile action will result in immediate neutralization. Vara exchanged glances with her crew. They were traders, not soldiers or explorers. They had no business making first contact with whatever this thing was. But they also couldn't leave. The merchant's dream engines had shut down the moment the scan completed, and no amount of effort from her engineering team could bring them back online. Meanwhile, 300 light-years away, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. Representatives from the 47-member species had been pulled from their duties. Across known space, as reports flooded in about mysterious signals appearing on every subspace frequency. The signals were identical to the one Vera had received, broadcasting in every known language simultaneously. Ambassador Yalith of the Etherin Collective stood at the center of the council chamber, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme distress. These signals originate from 17 different locations throughout the galaxy, all in regions previously thought uninhabitable. Each source appears to be a structure similar to what Captain Koss has encountered. The Macaran delegate, whose species had achieved spaceflight before any other current civilization, leaned forward on his 6 legs. "We have records going back 12,000 years. There has never been any indication of structures in these locations. They appeared simultaneously, as if they were always there, but hidden from our sensors. Chancellor Drek of the Warrior Kazan spoke next, his voice carrying the authority of a species that controlled the largest military force in the galaxy. If these are human installations, we must proceed with extreme caution. The archaeological evidence we have found suggests there. Technology was advancing at a rate that defied understanding. In 300 years, they went from chemical rockets to something that could manipulate space-time itself. The debate continued for hours, but it was interrupted when every display in the council chamber activated without warning. A figure appeared, clearly a recording, but so high in quality it seemed the person was standing in the room with them. It was a human, matching the descriptions from ancient records. Middle-aged, with graying hair and tired eyes that held a weight of knowledge that made even the eldest council members uncomfortable. The human spoke, and translation matrices across the galaxy worked overtime to convey not just the words, but the emotion behind them. My name is Director Sarah Chun, and by the time you see this message, humanity has been gone for at least 4 millennia. If you are viewing this, it means our preservation protocol has been triggered and certain conditions have been met in galactic civilization. The recording paused, as if Director Chun was gathering her thoughts, then continued. We did not leave because we wanted to. We left because we had to. During our time among you, we discovered something about ourselves that terrified us more than any external threat ever could. Humans are adaptive to a degree that no other species can match. We don't just use tools. We become them. We don't just learn from other cultures. We absorb them completely. The image shifted to show charts and data that the Council's scientists would spend months analyzing. Within our first century of contact, humans who lived among other species began changing at the genetic level. Not through any deliberate modification, but through a natural process we couldn't control or fully understand. We were becoming something new, something that was no longer entirely human, but not entirely alien either. The projections showed that within 1,000 years, original humanity would cease to exist, absorbed and transformed by contact with the greater galaxy. Director Chun reappeared, and now the weight in her eyes made sense. We faced a choice. We could stay and lose ourselves, becoming something unprecedented and unpredictable, or we could withdraw and preserve what we were. We chose preservation, but we also chose protection. The scene shifted again, showing the construction of massive installations throughout the galaxy. These Guardian stations were built in secret, hidden in dimensions slightly out of phase with normal space. They were programmed to monitor galactic civilization and intervene only if certain conditions were met, or on a galactic scale, the development of weapons that could destroy entire species, or the discovery of the threat that drove us into hiding. Vera watched the same message play on her bridge, her crew silent as they absorbed the implications. X was the first to speak. Captain, if these stations have been watching us for 4,000 years, why reveal themselves now? Before anyone could answer, every screen changed again. This time, it wasn't a recording. The face that appeared was human, but younger, wearing a uniform that seemed to be made of light itself. Captain Koss, I am Commander Marcus Webb of Guardian Station 7. I'm speaking to you in real time from within the installation you've discovered. I need you to carry a message to your Galactic Council. Vera found her voice. Commander, are you saying there are living humans in that sphere? Marcus nodded, his expression grave. There are 12 million humans in stasis within this station. Alone, 17 stations throughout the galaxy hold over 200 million total. We've been sleeping, Captain, waiting for the right moment to return. That moment has come, but not for the reason we hoped. The main viewer shifted to show a star chart, but it was focused on a region outside known space. Your deep space monitoring. Stations should be detecting it within the next 72 hours. A force from outside our galaxy, something we encountered traces of just before our withdrawal. They consume civilizations, absorb their technology and biology, and leave nothing behind but empty worlds. We call them the Devourers. The bridge of the merchant's dream fell silent. Vera felt her heart pounding as she processed the implications. You're saying you hid to protect yourselves from these Devourers? No, Captain, Marcus replied, and for the first time he smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. We hid to protect all of you. The Devourers are drawn to certain types of technological and biological development. Humanity's rapid advancement and our unique adaptive abilities would have attracted them like a beacon. We removed ourselves from the equation, hoping the galaxy would develop defenses naturally over time. But our monitoring shows you're not. Ready, the Galactic Council's combined forces wouldn't last a day against what's coming. Back at the council chamber, panic was beginning to set in. Chancellor Drek stood, his warrior's instincts overriding diplomatic protocol. If this threat is real, we need humanity's weapons. Wake them all up immediately. The image of Director Chun reappeared. We anticipated this reaction. The Guardian stations will begin revival procedures, but it will take time. 4,000 years of stasis cannot be reversed instantly without killing the subjects. You have 90 days before the Devourers arrive. In that time, we will share our technology, our knowledge, and our strength. But understand this. Humanity's return changes everything. Vera watched as the sphere before her ship began to transform. Sections of its surface became transparent, revealing vast cities inside, empty but perfectly preserved. Lights began to flicker on, one by one, illuminating streets and buildings that had waited 4 millennia for their inhabitants to return. Captain Koss, Commander Marcus said, I'm transmitting coordinates to your navigation system. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7. You and your crew will be the first non-humans to set foot in a human city since the withdrawal. We have much to show you and very little time to prepare. As the merchant's dream moved toward the indicated Docking Bay, Vera couldn't shake the feeling that she was witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. Humanity was returning, but not as conquerors or saviors. They were returning as partners in a fight for survival. It would test every species in the galaxy. The Docking Bay doors opened like a mouth, welcoming them home. And Vera guided her ship into humanity's embrace, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk, the reckoning, the human city inside Guardian Station 7 defied every expectation. Vera had about architecture and urban planning. Buildings seemed to grow from the ground like organic structures, their surfaces shifting between solid matter and pure energy. Streets flowed and adjusted their width based on traffic that hadn't existed for 4,000 years. While overhead, transportation pods sat waiting in stations that floated without any visible support. Commander Marcus Webb met them at the docking platform, and seeing a living human up close made Vera's breath catch. He moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost predatory, and his eyes held depth that spoke of knowledge beyond his apparent years. Behind him stood a small group of humans, all wearing the same light-based uniforms, all sharing that same unsettling intensity. Welcome to Haven City, Marcus said, extending his hand in what Vera recognized as the ancient human greeting ritual. She took it carefully, surprised by the warmth and strength in his grip. I apologize for the emptiness. The revival process has begun, but we're bringing people back in stages. The first priority is military personnel and scientists. We have a war to prepare for. Vex's compound eyes were recording everything, his species' natural curiosity overwhelming. Protocol. Commander, This technology? How did humanity advance so quickly? Marcus led them through the city streets, past fountains that created impossible water sculptures, and parks where bioluminescent plants provided light that felt alive. We didn't develop all of this ourselves. During our first century of galactic contact, we encountered ruins of a civilization we called the predecessors. They had faced the Devourers millions of years ago and lost, but they left warnings and fragments of their technology. We were able to reverse engineer some of it, combine it with our own innovations. They entered a massive building that Marcus identified as the Strategic Command Center. Inside, holographic displays showed the entire galaxy in perfect detail, with real-time updates on every ship, station, and inhabited world. Red indicators were beginning to appear at the galactic edge, spreading like an infection. They're earlier than predicted, one of the human technicians announced, her fingers dancing across interfaces that materialized in the air around her. The Devourer Scout elements will reach the outer colonies in 60 days, not 90. Marcus's expression hardened. Then we accelerate everything. Send the activation signal to all Guardian stations. Begin emergency revival protocols for essential personnel only. We'll have to manage with a smaller force than planned. Vera stepped forward. Commander, the Galactic Council needs to know what we're facing. What exactly are these Devourers? The main display shifted, showing recordings that looked ancient despite their perfect quality. Ships that defied geometry swarmed over planets, not destroying them, but somehow unmaking them, converting matter and energy into forms that shouldn't exist. The Devourers aren't a species in any sense we understand. They're more like a force of entropy given consciousness and purpose. They consume not just resources, but the fundamental information that makes up reality. Every civilization they destroy makes them stronger, more complex. On the Galactic Council floor, chaos reigned as member species argued about how to respond to the human revelation. The Kazan were mobilizing their entire fleet, while the Aetherians were attempting to create defensive shields around their core worlds. The Corvani proposed immediate evacuation of the outer colonies, and the Thrakari suggested attempting diplomatic contact with the Devours. It was into this chaos that the first human ambassador in 4,000 years materialized, not through the doors, but appearing directly in the center of the chamber through a teleportation technology that shouldn't have been possible. She was tall, with silver hair and augmented eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. I am Admiral Rebecca Torres, speaking for the Reformed Human Collective, she announced, her voice carrying despite the noise. I am here to coordinate our joint defense against the Devourer incursion. Every moment we waste in debate is a moment closer to extinction. Chancellor Drex stood, his warrior's pride battling with practical necessity. You abandoned us for 4 millennia, and now you expect us to follow your lead? Rebecca's expression didn't change. We expect you to survive, whether you follow our lead or not is irrelevant if we're all consumed. But consider this. Humanity faced a choice between staying and potentially attracting this threat unprepared, or leaving to develop countermeasures in isolation. We chose the option that gave all of us the best chance. Now we're offering you the fruits of 4,000 years of focused preparation. She gestured, and the council chamber's displays showed weapon systems that defied current understanding. Ships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that targeted the fundamental forces holding matter together, shields that existed in parallel realities simultaneously. Asterisk, we have 17 Guardian stations, Rebecca continued. Each one contains not just humans in stasis, but automated factories that have been producing defense systems for millennia. We have a fleet of 40,000 ships that exist partially outside normal spacetime. We have weapons based on predecessor, technology that can wound the Devourers in ways your current arsenals cannot. But we need your numbers, your resources, and your knowledge of how the galaxy has changed. Back on Guardian Station 7, Vera watched as the first revival chambers opened. Humans emerged, disoriented but quickly adapting their enhanced physiologies, allowing them to recover from 4,000 years of stasis in hours rather than weeks. Each one moved with that same fluid grace, and Vera realized that humanity had continued evolving, even in isolation. Marcus noticed her observation. We had to change ourselves to fight them. The Devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime. To combat them effectively, humans have undergone modifications that let us perceive and interact with higher dimensions. It's irreversible. We can never go back to what we were. A young human soldier, looking no older than 20 standard years, approached carrying a weapon that seemed to shift and change based on the angle of observation. Commander, revival of combat units at stations 3, 9, and 15 is complete. Fleet elements are moving to defensive positions around the outer colonies. The tactical display updated, showing human ships appearing throughout the galaxy like ghosts becoming solid. Their designs were unlike anything in the current galactic databases, incorporating geometries that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. As Vera watched, one of the ships demonstrated its capabilities by jumping not through hyperspace, but by folding space itself, appearing instantly at its destination without traveling the distance between. The first contact with the Devourers came at a mining colony called Dusthaven. The colony's distress signal lasted exactly 4 seconds before cutting off, but those 4 seconds of sensor data told a horrifying story. The Devourer scouts didn't attack in any conventional sense. They surrounded the colony and began unmaking it, converting matter into patterns of energy that fed back into their swarm. Asterisk. The Kazan Rapid Response Fleet arrived 12 minutes later, finding only empty space where a thriving colony of 3 million had existed. Chancellor Drek himself led the fleet, and his transmission to the Galactic Council was filled with barely controlled fear. They didn't destroy the colony. They erased it. There's nothing left, not even debris. It's as if Dusthaven never existed. Before the Kazan could retreat, the Devourer scouts turned their attention to the fleet. Weapons that could crack moons apart passed through the Devourer constructs without effect. Shields that could withstand supernovas crumbled like paper. In desperation, Drek ordered a ramming attack with his flagship, only to watch in horror as his ship began to unmake itself on contact with the enemy. Then the human fleet arrived. 40 ships materialized from nowhere, their hulls rippling with energy patterns that hurt to perceive directly. They didn't engage the Devourers with conventional weapons, but with something that looked like controlled reality fractures. Space itself became a weapon, twisted and torn in ways that forced the Devourer scouts to retreat or be shredded across. Multiple dimensions. Admiral Torres coordinated the defense from Guardian Station 1, her consciousness linked directly to the fleet through technology that blurred the line between human and artificial intelligence. All units implement Protocol 7. Create reality anchors around surviving Kazian vessels. We're pulling them out. The human ships formed a complex pattern around the Kazian fleet, and suddenly the survivor ships were elsewhere, safely delivered to a rally point 3 systems away. Chancellor Drek found himself on his bridge, most of his fleet intact, but his pride shattered. How? Was all he could manage to say when Admiral Torres appeared on his communication screen. We learned from the predecessor's failure, she replied. The Devourers can't be fought with conventional physics. They exist partially in higher dimensions, feeding on the information that defines reality. We had to develop weapons that could damage them on that level, and defenses that could anchor us to normal spacetime despite their attacks. As the human fleet engaged the Devourer scouts across multiple systems, the true scale of humanity's transformation became apparent. They had not just developed new weapons. They had become something new themselves. Human pilots merged consciousness with their ships, experiencing time and space in ways that would drive other species insane. Human soldiers carried weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, firing projectiles that could wound creatures of pure entropy. But the scouts were just the beginning. Deep space sensors detected the main Devourer fleet approaching, a swarm so vast it distorted space-time around it like a moving black hole. Conservative estimates put their numbers in the millions, each construct capable of unmaking entire worlds. Marcus stood with Vera on the observation deck of Guardian Station 7, watching as humanity's entire hidden fleet assembled for the first time in 4 millennia. "We knew this day would come," he said quietly. "Everything we've done, every sacrifice we've made was for this moment. Can you win?" Vera asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Marcus turned to her, and for the first time, she saw uncertainty in those ancient young eyes. "Alone? No. The predecessors were more advanced than us, and they fell. But they were. Alone, we have something they didn't. A galaxy of species, each with unique strengths, united in survival. Your Corvani have parallel processing abilities we can't match. The Aetherians understand energy manipulation in ways we're still learning. The Kazan have tactical brilliance honed by millennia of conflict. Together, we might have a chance." The final battle began at the edge of known space, where reality itself grew thin. The Devourer fleet emerged from higher dimensions, like nightmares becoming real, their forms constantly shifting between states of matter and energy. The combined galactic fleet met them with everything they had: human reality weapons, Aetherian energy matrices, Kazan tactical formations, Corvani computational predictions, and technologies from dozens of other species. The battle raged across dimensions, fought not just in space, but in the quantum foam that underlied reality itself. Ships died and were reborn as their existence was debated at the fundamental level. Entire fleets phased in and out of existence as the laws of physics became suggestions rather than rules. At the climax, when it seemed the Devourers would overwhelm even humanity's impossible defenses, Admiral Torres gave an order that had been prepared 4,000 years ago. Every Guardian station activated simultaneously, creating a network of reality anchors that stabilized spacetime across the entire galaxy. The Devourers, suddenly unable to phase between dimensions, became vulnerable to conventional attack. The tide turned in minutes. Weapons that had been useless before now tore through Devourer constructs. The enemy that had consumed countless galaxies found themselves trapped in three-dimensional space, subject to laws they had transcended eons ago. As the last Devourer construct fell, dissolved into quantum foam by combined human Aetherian weapons, a silence fell across the galaxy. They had won, but the cost was visible in the debris fields that had once been fleets, in the empty spaces where colonies had been unmade, in the exhausted faces of soldiers who had fought in dimensions beyond normal understanding. Commander Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of Guardian Station 7, looking out at a galaxy forever changed. Humanity had returned, but not as the species that had left. They were something new now, transformed by necessity into beings that could fight nightmares and win. And they were not alone. "What happens now?" Vera asked, standing beside him as human and alien ships worked together to rescue survivors and rebuild what had been lost. Marcus smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. "Now we do what humanity has always done best. We adapt, we survive, and we prepare for whatever comes next, together." The Guardian stations began their transformation from weapons of war to centers of learning, where human technology and knowledge would be shared freely with all species. The galaxy had survived its darkest hour, and from that darkness, a new age of cooperation was born. Humanity had returned not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners in a universe that had proven itself bigger and stranger than anyone had imagined. And in the void between galaxies, other threats stirred, but they would find not a divided galaxy of separate species, but a united force that had faced entropy itself and won. The universe would never be the same, and that, perhaps, was humanity's greatest gift to the stars. Asterisk.